A very wonderful day, viewers out there. Welcome to the program Perspective on ITV. My name is Chuka Onguhai. On Perspective, we look at a variety of issues with profiling solution. This week on the program, we shall examine ways of using technology, curbing food insecurity that is actually becoming a threat to the country. You could recall the issue of insecurity ravaging some parts of the country, which has actually militated farmers from going to the farm. Let's go out there and meet experts, and of course, to explain to us ways we can use technology to fight against food security in the country. When we come back, we shall be wrapping up the program.
The best bet for Nigeria as a country to address food security is actually to go the technology way, the use of emerging technologies, modern technologies that can actually boost agricultural productivity. Because the challenges we're having at hand, I mean, they're just too numerous to mention, too many. I think the first is, of course, the security situation in the country, where you go to your farm and you're not sure you will go back to your house. You're not sure you will leave your farm in one piece. It's either you're wounded or you're dead so there's so many things. And then the climate change devastation is another thing. And then drought, issues of diseases, insect pest infestation of our crops, issue of soil fertility, because the soil is being degraded through some of our activities, human activities, cutting down trees, all those things, building houses, more houses, urbanization and industrialization and what. All these are factors that actually contribute to our soil losing their fertility. And so, like I said, it's just too numerous. We are contending with a lot. Gully erosion, flood disasters, and there are just so many, and the population growth. The population growth is another big factor, where we have more people being born. I think the rate of people being born is quite higher than the death rate. The birth rate is far higher than the death rate, and so we are actually struggling for resources, on the natural resources that we have. Everybody wants to have more than his own other human beings. So if we don't think out of the box, if we don't bring in technology, just bring technology into agriculture, we cannot make it. Traditional agriculture, traditional breeding methods are actually failing us, because there are barriers that they cannot cross. So you have to use science to be able to cross those genetic barriers, that the traditional breeding alone cannot really, So, and what are those emerging technologies? We have the tool of modern biotechnology practice, the tool of genetic modification, and then we have gene editing. That's the most emerging one. The gene editing, it also has some tools that are actually very useful. You don't have to do transgenesis. Transgenesis means bringing a gene from an unrelated species to another unrelated species, where that we know that a lot of controversies surround those kind of things. So the gene editing people are more comfortable with that. You open up a plant genome And because whatever we are in life, the genes are the DNA is the blueprint of life, and everything. The genes are contained in the DNA, and whatever we look like, whatever we do, all living things were being controlled by the genes. And so with the discovery of the DNA in 1953 by scientists, and then the innermost part of the DNA where the genes are located and what. So scientists actually made that discovery. It was discovered by Watson and Crick, and then there was a lady. They discovered it, but they didn't know they couldn't get access to the innermost part of the DNA, and I think nothing much about it then, until when a lady, Rosalind Franklin, who through the research work of her crystallography, I think she was into photographies and all, and she discovered the innermost parts of the DNA, where the genes are, where they are located, and what their functions are and what. So through her research work, the innermost part of the DNA was discovered. And so scientists they later found that they could, since they're actually the basic elements of our life and what, so you could actually use those genes to, you can manipulate them, play around with them to get what you want, and it's actually a natural process and all those things. So I think that is where the breakthrough came in. So if I have my maize, maize is a rain-fed crop all the time. It uses a lot of water. You need the rain and what. It's not an arid crop like sorghum. And I want to be able to grow my maize either in the arid zone and what. So I can actually open it up, isolate the DNA and check for where that gene, that gene, that actually promotes the maize to be either water loving or what, So I can now suppress it, make it, to be able to adapt in the arid area. So that's this is real science. I'm just giving you the basics, of it. It's not like it's what is already there, but because God has actually placed us human beings on top of everything on earth. When He created Adam and Eve, He created everything, but He didn't name them. It's when He created Adam, He now allowed Adam name everything, and it's actually man that named, all the birds, named everything that we have, the trees, the world, the mountains, the world, is Adam that. So God, has already given us that power, that knowledge. Is for us to discover, the knowledge and what. And so, with all that, we have all the power, everything. It's not the genetic modification is not like we are the ones inventing or doing. Is God has already put it. When He made Adam, and He was still not happy until when He made a woman. And the woman is genetic, of course, modification. He removed the rib of Adam and then made the woman. And so we are actually, whatever we are doing is premised on that thing. It started with God. God started it. And so you could actually, do a lot. So by that, you can, because when the genetics started initially, you could actually do, the grafting, the warts, all this budding and grafting, gene transfer. And then it's both in plants and animals. I have an animal, maybe a sheep or a goat. Mine is better looking, healthier, vigorous, more vigorous than my neighbor's own. So you allow them to mate, come together. So it's exchange of genes that's taking place, but it's taking place within species. It has to be from a goat to goat, that kind of. And then if it's in the case of plants, from maize, another variety of maize to another variety. Maybe one variety is better than the other. So those things that make it better is genes that promotes the presence of some genes that promotes that's maybe vigorous element in that thing, and then makes it look better than your neighbor's own or what. So you can now so you can do it. You know, when it started, they could only do it from a maize variety to another maize variety and what. But the discovery of that DNA, gave more understanding that barrier could be, could actually be broken, that we could cross the barrier. You don't have to do, because the DNA is same in every living thing, except maybe we can say the viruses, they don't have DNA, they have only RNA. But in every other living DNA, the components of the DNA are same. So I can actually take a gene, do you understand, from either sorghum. What is making sorghum to be able to, be survive in the desert, grow and what? Because if you travel down to Maiduguri, what people grow more of sorghum and what, and there are varieties of sorghum because around that area they only have rainfall, 3 months rainfall. Rain starts in August. By September, October, rain is going. So if you don't have crops that can survive that, there's no way you can. How will you have access to food? So, and that's why we saw that, scientists saw that, we should go beyond that. Places like those Arizonas should also be able to cultivate. You have to have varieties. You have to have varieties. It's the spice of life, of course. So that they don't only grow sorghum all the time. They should also be able to grow things like the maize and other. So I can actually pick a gene based on the understanding of that DNA and everything. I can take a gene from that sorghum that makes it survive in the desert, or any other tree that grows in the desert. There must be something that's making that tree. So I now go for it, isolate the DNA, and I'll be able to find that the gene sequence, and they'll be able to find those actual ones that are making the sorghum or what thrive. Then I can take that and then put it in my maize. Put it in my maize, and my maize will be able to grow in that area. So like this, you are now crossing the barrier, and so the gene pool now becomes wide for us. You can actually do a lot with it and all those things. And so the best is the scientists later learned, said we have to regulate this technology, because other people can now, how human beings are, they can actually use it the wrong way. They can also use it, allow it, bring in bioterrorism and what. So, and that's why regulation comes in, just to control the use of the technology and what, so that it's not used for, it's only used for the benefit of human beings. So these are some of the things. That's why we need to use the technology to actually enhance food security, to have more food, to enhance our productivity, because our productivity are actually very, very low. Is 1%, below 3%, maybe between 1 and 3% in Africa generally. We're going to we've done it in Lagos. Eating is believing. We prepared different delicacies in Lagos. Moi, akra, biri, abi. This Yoruba soup, bean soup. So we did it as a whole beans, as rice and beans and what. And very delicious, very nice, sumptuous. And it doesn't break, as you see, it doesn't get mushy. If you soak it, it swells up. The sizes are small here, but it swells up. And then there's also early maturing. Yeah, I've talked about it. So issue of safety, because it has been the gene of insect, has been certified to be safe by the National Biosafety Management Agency. They are actually the authority, focal, national focal authority on this in terms of safety. During the research period, the research process, regulatory, we had a lot of regulatory exercises, regulatory trials and what. You have to make sure that you carry out evaluations, food safety evaluations, after you have succeeded in bringing the gene, and then you have succeeded in getting the gene actually expressed in the beans, and then the efficacy, you've tested the efficacy, is efficacious, is really working against Maruca, because at the field you have to infest the plants with Maruca. You breed Maruca in the lab, take them to the field. After planting this, when they grow, when they get to leafy and flowers, you infest with the Maruca. So that's how it is. You actually infest. When you infest, then you watch out. Is it affecting it? Is it destroying it? If it's destroying, that's, you drop that experiment. So, but when all this, it passed through all, Maruca did not destroy, they infested. And so when you now harvest it, it becomes a plant, starts podding, you harvest. Okay, now the next stage you have to do is this grain I have come up with, I have to test if it is safe to eat. So you get back to the lab and you bring rats, usually it's rats they use, even in drugs, it's rats they use, drug development, before you finish the life cycle. So feed, crush, feed, maybe you can make also or make it like that and feed it, give it to rat to eat and observe. So you have to know the condition of the rat before you feed the rat, so that if the rat is already maybe infected with something, check the liver and what, the healthiness of the rat and what. So after feeding, then you now check, is there anything, for days, for months, for what. So if the rat does not get sick, maybe instead the rat is just growing fatter and fatter, that this thing is healthy. If the rat does not begin to be sick, do you understand? So these are all the safety, is when you now finish all these processes, then you can also plant it for environmental, to ensure that it's not going to do any harm to the environment or the insects around. You actually plant it, in the wild. They usually maybe around your farm, outside your farm, where there are other weeds and other plants and what plants, and see whether it will become invasive or become to other plants. You have to ensure. Then other insects, you have to observe as you're growing, or are there other insects that this was not developed to resist? Are they affecting? Are they dying? Are they not? Do you understand? So you have to also ensure that it only affects the insect, or those insects that are in the family of that insect you developed the beans to resist. So it took us many years. Many years, and is actually a collaborative work between our national institutes, with the regulatory institutes and the international, partners, development agencies and all those. So that's everybody was playing, its part, all the institutions, National Agri Seed Council, NABDA, NDMA, that's National Biosafety Management Agency. IAR was actually took the technology part, and Agri Research Council. We just many, a lot of efforts went into the development of this project. And today, it's actually farmers are enjoying the yield, because that problem that was actually making it not to yield is the maruca. Once it gets destroyed, the yield becomes small, and Nigeria we're the largest producers and consumers of beans. So we were not having enough, producing within the country enough, and there was a deficit of 500,000 metric tons. So, and the deficit was actually made up by importing, so that we can have enough to feed on in the country. So now with this now, I think the yield will go higher. The yield of this is 3 tons, 2.9 to 3.33 tons. That's the potential yield per hectare if you manage your farm well. In fact, if you plant it on a very fertile soil, you don't need fertilizer. You know that beans also fixes, traps nitrogen from the air, and so, but you still need, because the soil fertility now very low, and but if you plant it in a good place, you don't even need them. So the number of sprays now reduced. Farmers before now were like using 8 sprays maximum, sometimes maybe 10, but now they can only do 2 sprays to take care of those insects outside the maruca family. Actually, my advice to the government is to invest more in this. This is a local research, by our local institute, the government institutions, but largely, funded by our international partners and all those things. So I think the government can actually, we can actually use this, to have more confidence in her institutions, and then provide more funding, invest more in these beans, so that we can do more. If this can be developed, we can actually develop a beans variety that will be weevil resistant, because the weevil is actually a menace. You store it, within 1 week, you're already having weevils in your beans. And I think it's actually one of the reasons why some people were using this pesticide, what do they call it? To spray sniper. Yeah, they were using sniper. And our beans was actually rejected because of the residual load of insecticide or pesticide on our own. So rejected in UK, I remember, and even in US, most produce from Nigeria, they're not readily accepted. So, but with this technology now, you can see this can be taken anywhere in the world, because we were actually not. It's an international effort, collaboration, and what. So the product can be accepted anywhere in the world, this product, and so it gives us that global, what will I say? Yeah, recognition. It gives us that global recognition, and then we can also partake in the global trade and what. And Nigeria is actually the first country to to come out with this beans product, a beans that is pod borer resistant. As the pod borer is maruca, because many people cultivated this. It's going to the market for sure.
Welcome back. Hope we've heard from that expert on ways we can curb food security with the use of technology. I hope our viewers at home, you've enjoyed, of course, the topic today, and of course, you've gained much from the expert. Join me same time next week on this program. Until then, my name is Chuka. Bye for now.